This segment is brought to you by Buick. Exceptional by design. All right, we're back, and it's good vibes time. Martin Falls, Debbie Cox-DeNova. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
You been out in the sun, getting sun and all that?
Yeah,
having a good time?
Of course. It's
All right.
summertime. I'm doing my
Just
job.
checking. You wearing sunscreen?
Yes.
All right. Okay, elevating relationships. Everybody, 100% of the people could use this.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, I'm ready.
Especially in our modern day. We've talked about this before. Our definition of monogamy has changed. Our definition of what is required in marriage, especially in our country. And largely, still in most of the world, marriage is sort of an economic thing. Like it was literally about like, let's find a way to track the lineage and who are we going to pass the cows down to afterward. Mm-hmm. And the woman was required to show up sexually as a part of the marital agreement, whether she wanted to or felt like it. Mm-hmm. And that has completely changed in the last 50 or 60 years, specifically in this country.
Tell me about it.
Right. And it's continuing to evolve, right? Mm-hmm. There are all sorts of things that are sort of factored in now with the internet and AI and all sorts of things. Like who knows where we're going and headed, but we're all trying to keep up. And the problem is that without having discussions about this, our expectations, Esther Perel says that expectations are oftentimes the beginning of resentments, because we're expecting our partner to be so much more than a partner has ever been in the history of romantic relationships, mm-hmm. right? First of all, romance in relationships was not and still is not a necessity across the world. It's this thing now that's expected in our modern day, mm-hmm. in the Western world. It's like, you need to be my best friend, my confidant, you need to be my romantic mm-hmm. partner, you need to be the fulfillment, and you need to take care of this existential loneliness that I have felt all of my life. It's a requirement and a burden that is unreasonable on the other partner. So that's the first thing, is to sort of look at the way that we view our romantic relationships, our expectations, and then if we can discuss that openly with our partner, we can come to a better understanding. Because there's a lot about this that
unreachable expectations.
Yeah, we're setting ourselves up for failure mm-hmm. right from the start, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the things to think about is that in the context of relationship, what happens oftentimes is that we have this like me versus you kind of attitude. And Esther Perel says it's about caretaking the third entity, which is the us, mm-hmm. right? And that's oftentimes what we see missing in relationships. And it's literally because for whatever reason, when we get into a committed partnership, what it tends to happen is that instead of having a posture of curiosity, which would be like a leaning in, like, how can I make this better? We tend to have a posture of resignation, kind of like, leave me alone. I've had a long day. Like, this is too much for me. And we literally would have that attitude with nothing else that we're trying to manage, right? You would not, as a CEO, say, the bonuses and all of that's just too much trouble, right? Like mm-hmm. managing my business is too much trouble, because you mm-hmm. already know that without management of your business mm-hmm. goes down. Mm-hmm. But yet we are in our most important relationships, and Perel says that we are treating them like cactuses.
I'm chuckling inside because you said, tell me about your day. I had a specific girlfriend that every time I get home, she goes, tell me about your day. And I'm going, I don't want to relive my whole day.
Right. So it's to like
I
understand
just want to
that.
Relax.
Right. And meanwhile, maybe she's trying to emotionally connect, right? So it's like we have these mismatches. We're kind of like, we're going this way and that. And that's not even the worst case. Like the worst case is just, so we're just, she says, treating our relationships like cactuses.
That makes a good point. Okay, so if somebody's staying home, it could be the man staying home. I know somebody. The man stays home, the woman's a doctor, she works. Mm-hmm. But because somebody stays home and somebody's working all the time, you got to find that middle ground.
Yes.
That's hard to do.
It's very challenging. There is a lot that we're actually trying to balance in relationships. And we've talked about this before. The quality of the relationship really is determined about how well you fight. Mm-hmm. So some people think, well, it's about avoiding fights altogether. That's not even a thing. If you want to have a strong partnership over time, it's about fighting well. Mm-hmm. It's about learning how to create that, like that Japanese art of kintsugi, where you're putting that gold in the cracks and you're making it beautiful because of the fights and not in spite of the fights, right? So if you are finding yourself, and couples do, we fight about the same things over and over again on a loop. But Perel says that essentially you're actually arguing about three things really underneath the surface. It's not about the empty toilet paper roll or the dishes in the sink or the laundry on the floor. Those are the things we argue about, but underneath there are 3 actual things that we're arguing about. If you want to write this down at home, this is a really important detail if you want to start managing, okay? The first one is about power and control. So it's essentially like, who is making the rules in this relationship? Who gets to say I while the other one is required to say we? That's something that a lot of couples argue about, where
Who
it's like,
controls the toilet seat?
right, right, absolutely, okay?
Right.
So who has the power and control? Number 2 is about care and closeness. So this is about, are you taking my interests as your own? Can I trust you? Okay. And then number 3 is respect and recognition. Do you value me as a person? So those are the 3 that kind of resurface over and over again when we're talking about romantic relationships. So if you can identify which one you're actually, what need you're actually wanting to get met, then the next thing is about how to approach it in a way that doesn't inspire the other person to get defensive and like push back at you. So what we tend to do is come to the table with our finger pointed, like you always, you never, you, right? Which is just inspires the other person to like pull up all the ways that actually you say never. Last Friday I did it, right? And then it just goes nowhere. It's in a cycle. So if you use this formula, when you do X in situation Y, I feel Z. When you do X in situation Y, I feel Z. This puts the focus on my experience instead of pointing the finger at you, and it's a much more productive conversation.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I like that. Easier said than done.
It is.
Well, we'll come back and talk some more.
Yes.
We'll take a break. When we come back, elevating relationships. Don't go away. This segment was brought to you by Buick. Exceptional by design. All right, we're back. Elevating relationships is the topic on Good Vibes, and Debbie is back with us. So let me ask you that. What do you do when you get to a point, every relationship does, where you're going, no, I'm not bending on this, and then she's going, I'm not bending on this. So you're in no man's land and she's in no woman's land.
Yes, yes. So this is a really good point, because this goes back to what we talked about before, which is that it tends to be that way whenever we have those breaches in. So we're sharing context. The rupture point is which I want to go this way and you want to go that way, right? And so it's to remember that it's not just a me and a you anymore. It's the context, the shared context, right? Is like the us. The third entity is the us. And so what that means is that we need to create new shared context at this point. And those are the couples who know how to do that really well that make it. So it's about taking the other person's interest as your own. That's what love really is, right? It's like, I see that your interests are different from mine, and I can see the conflict where like my interests are here and yours are there. How can we create a new shared context where the both of us are actually feeling met and we move forward together in a more powerful way? This is not easy, to your point.
Or joke about the differences.
Or yes, humor is always an amazing thing, because it's like when you can actually make light of things that would actually otherwise be potentially completely disruptive in your relationship, it brings closeness and bonding into the experience. So the things that go wrong in a relationship, and again, you may want to write this down, because again, these are pitfalls that the science says are like universal. So the things that go wrong: indifference. Get into the relationship, and now we're just kind of like, I don't care that much anymore, okay? Number 2, we've talked about this, contempt. This is actually the worst one. Contempt is sulfuric acid. And contempt is one of these emotions where other emotions like sadness and anger, they'll come and then they'll go down. Contempt can just continue in the relationship, and it really is this dismissal.
That's hard to get over.
It is. It's a dismissal of the other person. It's a superiority. It's a thing like I don't need you anymore. And when it's felt, it's actually very toxic to the recipient of it. Number 3 is neglect. So this is like we said, like, treating the relationship like a cactus, just kind of like, okay, you don't need that much tending to, right? And we are a meaning creatures. So we basically want to know that we matter in a relationship. So as soon as we feel like we don't matter, it really starts to spell the end, right? And then violence, which doesn't have to be overt, like it can be microaggressions. Pearl says that we speak to each other sometimes within the context of relationship and marriage especially, in ways that would have us get punched in the face on the streets, or in ways that would have people leave us. But there's a kind of understanding of like, oh, you're family now, so you have to put up with this, right? And so we kind of lose that respect, and we lose the please and thank you that came in the very beginning, and that can spell disaster. Now,
And I think people do get content in bad relationships, and they get stagnant.
absolutely. Stagnation is the worst, especially for women. So here's what happens is that nothing has changed more than sex in the context of relationship over the last 50 to 60 years. And a lot of it is to do with like contraception. And she says that by nature, human beings are really not monogamous creatures. Like really, when it comes to monogamy, that it's a practice and a choice that you have to make, because it's one of those things that goes against the nature of human beings. And so what we know is that women actually lose interest in sex in the context of marriage. We talked about this before, faster than men do. And it's not because, a lot of people will say it's because women just don't have as big an interest in sex as men. That's not the truth. The reality is that when you look at it, when you unpack it, women actually have a disinterest in the kind of sex that comes within marriage, most marriages, because, to your point, oftentimes the story changes. The character, the plot, the narrative is not as seductive anymore. Women need a seductive narrative.
They need to be chased.
Yeah, well, they need the romance is what they need, right? Like romance is an essential element for women to actually feel desire. And so what happens a lot of times is that men will actually bring that in the very beginning with the understanding this is how you get her in. But then they kind of like, okay. And so now then sex becomes, the game of sex within their marriage becomes like, hey, we go about our lives. And at the end of the day, it's like, hey, you want to have sex? Which is not as seductive. It doesn't turn women on, right? So what they find is that women maybe are reading sexy novels, or they're still interested in sex. They're just not as excited about the sex within the relationship. Easy fix. Remember that part of the management of the relationship is actually to keep the romance alive so that she feels seductive, you know, she feels seduced. And then men, of course, need that respect, right? They need that respect. They need to feel needed and desired as well in order to keep.
They want to feel like a man.
Of course, yes, definitely. So in both parties, it's about caretaking the other. Now, it's a little difficult because like there's love and there's desire, right? And desire is the wanting and love is the needing. And so the problem is that there's a healthy dose of caretaking that comes in within the love context, but then too much caretaking actually is an anti-aphrodisiac. So it's like, she says it's not a balance so much as it's like walking. It's like one foot then the other. So you're kind of like, we want all of these things. We want like playfulness, and we want like the, you know, the continuity. We want the edge, but we also want the security, right? We all of these dichotomous experiences within one relationship.
Yeah, quit being so needy. Run and let me chase you.
Right. Well, sure. You know, it's like it's like calibrating. It's kind of like going, okay, where are we now? And now where are we? And then kind of like putting into the relationship what is needed in order to keep the fire alive, but also to make sure that you're managing life well together, shared values and all of that.
LaRue wrote a song way back, Keep the Fire Burning.
Yes. Keep it burning.
I think that one had religious overtones, but it could be used in human
For sure.
respect as well.
Yes.
All right, great topic.
Thank you.
All right. Go get chased. That's all I can tell people. Go get chased. All right, we'll see you next week. This segment was brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together.